Anybody that follows my channel will know that most of my tutorials revolve around the Fusion page. I find that I do lots of things as I'm making tutorials without thinking about it, and don't really maybe explain what I'm doing as clearly as I can. Hopefully this video will address some of those things. So here we are in Fusion, and you'll often want to see what's happening in a particular node. To do that, you need to put the node into one of your viewers. There's three basic ways of doing this. The first is to use 1 and 2 on your number keyboard. So if you hit 1, if you select your node and hit 1, it puts it in the viewer. You can also hit 2, which will put it in the other viewer. Now, you can either have 1 or 2 viewers active at a time. If you select one viewer, then this viewer becomes viewer 2. So you can use the number 2 to put your node into the viewer. The other way you can do it is if you come down to the node and hover your mouse over the bottom left hand edge, you'll see you get these 2 dots. If you click on the dot, it puts it in the viewer. So you've either got your left viewer or your right viewer, or both. The third, and the way I most often do it, is if you click and just drag your node into a viewer. It has the same effect. And if you watch my tutorials, you see that I do that all the time. I just find that the quickest and easiest way of doing it. Other people favor the numbers. It's a personal choice. You'll quite often see people demonstrating 3D views, and you'll see them zooming in and spinning around, and you'll be going, how the hell did they do that? Well, basically, you use your middle mouse button. If you press and hold your middle mouse button, you can pan the scene left and right and up and down. If you press and hold your command or control key and scroll your middle mouse button, you can zoom in and out. And if you press and hold the option or alt key and press and hold your middle mouse button, you can spin your scene around. So they're the basic navigations. To move objects around in your 3D scene, you can either use the drag handles that are attached to the object, or you can use your translation and rotation wheels in the inspector. So with the camera selected, you can move with your wheels, or you can move with your handles, like so. To rotate your object, you can use your wheels in the rotation, or you can come to the top of your viewer, click on the rotate icon, and you can rotate using these circles. You can turn simulated lighting on and off with your lighting button here. So that's no simulated lighting. Turn the simulated lighting on. At the minute it's gone black because I've got a light in the scene, but if you take the light out, it gives you a sense of the 3D look of your object. With your light in, selecting your light, you can move your light around to light your scene up. Another useful tool in the inspector here, you've got use target. If you check that, it places this target, and your light, or if you do it with the camera, your camera will always point at this space. By default, it's at the center of your 3D scene, but you can move it around and you notice that the light will follow it. But what it means is if you now move your light continues to point at that target. By default, your workflow will look like this. So you'll have pipes that go between your various nodes and will go by the shortest route possible. What you'll also notice by default is that you can move your nodes wherever you want. And that's great. But if you're trying to line your nodes up, it makes it more difficult. So if you right click away from any of your nodes, go to Arrange Tools and select to Grid, what this will now do is it will make your nodes snap to an invisible grid. And it makes it much easier to line them up. What you notice on all my tutorials is that none of my pipes are diagonal. To get the effect I use, and this is again a choice thing really, if you come to Options and then check orthogonal pipes, and these give you these elbows. No practical difference, it doesn't make any difference to your Fusion comp, it's purely about the aesthetics of the layout and whichever you find it easiest. So you've got this nice particle system going on, but you want more particles, and you come to your number and you slide it up and it hits the edge and you think, but that's only given me 100 particles, I want more than that. All you do is you simply double click in the box and type in the number that you want. This will happen for most boxes associated with sliders, not all, but most. You're able to go beyond the slider by simply double clicking and type in your new number in. You can also use that for adding values quickly. So if you want to rotate your merge and you know that you're going to want an angle of 180 degrees, double click and type, and it saves you having to sort of move your slider and get it precise, etc. Just double click and type your number. On the subject of values and changing values, this size, for example, we can change by moving the slider. This gives us quite a coarse movement. If you want a slightly finer movement, if you hover your mouse over the numbers, press and hold your mouse, and then you can drag your mouse left and right and it will increase and decrease the values. That's less coarse than using the sliders. If you want super fine values, press and hold the Control or Command key, press and hold your left mouse button and slide, and this slows down the increments as the number changes, so you can get even finer control. You have your image in the viewer and you want to mask, I don't know, this fish. So you would select your polygon and you would start masking. Now it's quite difficult to mask here because the fish is quite small. So what you can do is if you press the Control key with your mouse pointer over the viewer, press and hold the Control key and scroll your mouse button, you can zoom in. Once you're zoomed in, you can press and hold the middle mouse button and you can pan around the viewer. So it makes it easier to do things like masking on small objects. Once you've got your mask in place or whatever detailed work you're doing, you can either press and hold the Control key and zoom with your middle mouse button again by scrolling, or you can come up to the top of the viewer here on the left. You've got this percentage figure. If you drop the down arrow, you've got fit, and that will put your window back to fit into the viewer. Loads of ways to bring new nodes in, and you'll often see tutorials where people use different methods. Your most common nodes are here in the middle in this hotbar. So this section is all about 3D. This section is all about particles. Then you've got masks. Then you've got various merges and mattes, transforms, etc. You've got color correction tools. Then you've got at this end a background node, a fast noise node, text, and a paint tool. To use any of these, you can select the node that you want your new node to follow. So I want to put a transform after this background node. So select the background node, come to your hotbar, find transform and click it. Because the background node was selected, that automatically connects the transform into your flow. If for some reason you don't select your background and click your transform, it's just going to appear somewhere random. It's not connected to anything. If that happens, all you need to do is if you press and hold the shift button and drag your node over the pipe that you want it in, and watch as my mouse hits the middle, the pipe changes color. In fact, if you just hold 2 seconds, I'm just going to turn off my visualizer. So press and hold the shift key and drag your node, and as you come over the line, you'll see that the line changes color. When the line changes color, just let go, and that automatically connects your node. If you want to disconnect it, press and hold shift key, drag out and let go, and it's disconnected. You can also manually connect your nodes. So if I want to put it between the background and this merge, I would need to delete this connection. Click on the connection nearest to the arrow and it deletes it. You can then take an output, pop it onto your transform, and then an output from your transform onto your merge, and again you connect it in. So other ways to get your nodes: you can right click anywhere out away from your nodes and you get this add tool, and this will list all the Fusion nodes that are available to you. So you can select, if you know what you're looking for, you can select it that way. The other way is with your effects library. If you make sure your effects library is turned on, I'll just turn the media pool off for a minute. You've got at the top tools, and again you've got a replica of the menu that we just had with the right click button. Find what you want and just drag it in. The last way, and probably the way you will most commonly see used, is if you press shift and spacebar. It may be control and spacebar on a Windows machine, I'm not sure. On a Mac it's shift and spacebar. You get the select tool dialog and you just type in what you're looking for, and then you can select it and add it. Organization and tidiness, making your node tree readable at a glance. At the minute mine isn't. Things like I've got these 2 background nodes, but I don't know what background's what. So you can rename your nodes to make life easier. To rename a node, select it, press F2 on your keyboard, and you get this dialog box where you can then rename your node. F2 dialog, rename. Helps keep your node tree tidy, and it helps you when you come back to your node tree in 6 months' time and think, well, what the hell is this node and that node? It tells you. You can also use these notes as reminders. To find those, you basically go to your search tool or select tool dialog, so shift and spacebar, and type note, and you've got sticky note. That adds the note in, put your notes in and it will stay in your comp. Sticking with the theme of organizing your node tree, you can use Underlays to mark out sections of your node tree. So for example, this area here is concerned with the text and the rotating stick here. So if you simply select all the nodes that you want, Shift and spacebar to bring up your select tool dialog and type under, you get underlay. And this basically puts a box around your nodes. Now you can select your box, right click and set the color. If you press Option or Alt and click on the underlay, you can then, that's just selected the box and not the nodes that are inside. Hit F2 and rename it. So you can see that this group manages the text and the stick. What the underlay will also allow you to do is select all the nodes in that group, but you can also click and move the underlay and it will move all your nodes. So this one's a bit of an irritant for me. You've got this circle that for whatever reason you want to animate to move around the screen. Go to your start position, you'd keyframe your center, you'd come forward and you'd move it. Now what I want to do is move forward 5 frames and set another keyframe or set a movement or whatever. What I would normally do is just hit the arrow keys 5 times to move forward. But what you find is that the arrow keys are now putting fine movement on your ellipse and they're not moving the frame counter. What that means is between each movement, you need to come down, click once in your node graph area, and then the arrow keys move the frame. If you then move your object again, unless you come and click, you're back to fine moving your object. So between each movement, come down, click in your node tree, and then you can frame forwards using your arrow keys. Move, click, frame forward with your arrow keys. This happens for any kind of path that you're making. So if you're animating a polygon or whatever, if you move a point, you put the focus of your arrow keys into your viewer into that point. So if I select this point and now press the arrow keys, you can see that the point is gradually moving. So to bring the focus back to your timeline, you need to click anywhere in your node tree and then you can move your frames. As I say, it's quite an irritant for me. In Fusion 16, I could do that, move frames with my arrow keys and move it again, but in 17 I can't. So that's just something to be aware of. I go through this at the start of pretty much every one of my videos. I hang out in Fusion most of the time. That's kind of what I do with Resolve. I frequently need to get into Fusion. There's several ways you can get into Fusion. The simplest way, you're on your timeline, you've got nothing on it, hit the Fusion button and you go into Fusion. When you first go in, there's nothing there. As soon as you add any node, it will auto-generate the media out for you. And when you come back to your Edit tab, you've got a Fusion comp. Next way, you can come into your media pool, right click and new Fusion composition. You can then set the duration and a name, etc. for your Fusion comp. Hit create and you get this Fusion comp here. You can then just drag that onto your timeline and go into Fusion. The next way is you make sure your effects library is turned on by hitting effects library at the top here. You go to effects and at the top you've got Fusion composition. Drag it into your timeline. And again, go into Fusion. Now, what you often see on my videos, especially the later videos, is that I have in the favorites bar down here the adjustment clip and the fusion comp. To do that, all you do is you come to your fusion comp, you see a little star at the end, just click on it, and that puts your fusion comp down in your favorites. Same with the adjustment clip. You can do that with pretty much anything in the effects library. If you use something a lot, make it a favorite, it stays down there, and then it doesn't matter which area of your effects library you're in, you've always got your fusion comp and your adjustment clip down here, and then you just drag it in. So there you have it, some of the things that I do without telling you what I'm doing. Hope some of you found that helpful and useful. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, like and hit the notification bell, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!